What are you doing now? Well, we're recording now. You said let's go. Now you're tying. You're working on your Boy Scout knots.
All right, let's go.
Unfortunately, we're back for episode 3. So, ownership change at Newcastle United, and that ungodly amount of money coming into the Premier League there, and what that means for the Premier League, soccer in general, Champions League, all of those implications. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, or dislike, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And let's move on with it right now, boys.
Remember, this is just our opinions. This is just 4 guys talking their mind about being a fan of the game.
And we are trying to, again, find somebody that will put up with us. So we've got another person on here this week, Tim Fleming.
Another initiate.
Sorry, Timmy.
1 down, 15 to go.
Oh, all right.
Ooh, 15 more episodes?
Before we cancel ourselves.
If we make... All right, Frankie, roll.
All right. Well, the latest I've seen, the fans have been screaming for Steve Bruce to be fired every game, just chanting, fire him, fire him, fire him. And they finally did. They have new ownership. They've already been looking. They've talked to Mark Overmars to actually be football director. And it looks like he's going to move from Ajax, where he's been amazing. And he's bringing one of his assistant coaches with him to Newcastle. So I don't know how all of this is going to set up, but Overmars has been brilliant at signing new players, identifying talent, getting young players into the Ajax system, and setting up the Ajax system. So this could potentially be a move similar to Johan Cruyff moving to Barcelona management and coaching, bringing in the right people. And you mix that with he has unlimited funds to get what he wants.
So is this what I'm going to throw out to you guys? Is that good for the game? Is that good for the Premiership to have somebody come in and try and throw a wrench in everything and say they're going to go after everything now?
I think that's traditionally what they've been doing. I mean, you look at Man City, you look at Chelsea, big owners coming in, throwing big wads of money at a handful of teams, making them way more competitive across internationally, Champions League and against other teams. This will just boost the competitiveness of the top teams over time. He's not going to be able to buy an entire team in one season.
Okay. Solid.
But
counterpoint.
Over the next 5 years. Counterpoint.
Well, I think that this is both a positive and a negative thing. The positive thing is that the teams can be a little bit more competitive with the bigger teams because they have a lot of money, and they will bring in they'll basically buy in quality players. But I think overall for the game itself in the Premier League, it's some bad news for the English players or the Premier League overall, because the thing is that they'll bring in this already made players that cost $1 billion from outside, and the younger kids that are in England or around Newcastle may not get the chance to play with the big boys, and the development of the game maybe will halter a little bit.
I want to counterpoint that because the FA kind of set that up themselves by eliminating, because they had a rule in place where you can only have 3 foreign players, and when they across all the leagues all started removing the foreign player limit, that opened the team up to not have as many domestic based players, and it did make the teams better, but the local talent didn't have a top tier place to play anymore.
Jimmy?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to kind of bring this back to Newcastle first. With Mike Ashley being the old owner, he was always considered kind of a penny pincher. He always saved his money,
Yeah.
And good players got bought or they left. Better players didn't want to come back. So when he turned around and sold it to the new group, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, for what? They're worth $320 billion.
Yeah.
That's amazing. They sold it for $305 million in US. That's $409 million in American money.
Pennies.
Pennies on the dollar, truthfully. If you look at just in the EPL, if you wanted to, the second highest owners is Newcastle or Man City. They're worth $23.2 billion. That's like 18 or 19%. I mean, just ridiculous money. Now we could sit here and discuss, is it good for the game? And that's a real uphill battle, because if you're local and you're a Newcastle supporter, you're loving it, right? But on the bigger picture, is it kind of killing the game as well? Soccer has always been, and football has always been, not about the money. It was a cheap sport to get in for your kids, and now it's becoming more of an elitist game. So we could talk about kind of the EPL side. We could talk about the bigger picture of big dollars, what that impact has. And then we can also talk about the coaching for Newcastle, which I'm interested in. And I do have a couple points on that. But me being the rookie here, I'm just going to kind of step back, listen to you guys, and let's get this thing rolling.
Yeah. Steve Bruce is already out.
So
correct.
So looking
and unfortunately, if you're a fan there, you wanted him out. I don't like how they pushed him out. I think they saved their bacon. But anytime there's a new regime, of course there's going to be their people coming in. So he's done a brilliant job for holding them at the EPL level.
Keeping them up. I think the fans' problem with him was he had coached at Sunderland prior to that, and that was a big, arch rival. So they brought in, as soon as he got brought in, the fans were he already had that stacked against him coming in.
So do any of the other owners that may cry foul now because this ownership group is too big and too much? Oh, now we've got to reel things back in because now they're not the big boys, or is it that cow already left the barn years ago? You guys have no case. None of the clubs have a case to make about any of this because it's been going on, and there's been foreign ownership in the EPL for many years.
They don't have.
There's nothing for them to say.
They can't. No, there is nothing else for them to say. It's really ridiculous if they start whining about this and that, and they have too much. They started that shit, so to speak. So
it's just going to happen now on a bigger scale.
Right.
So keeping on Newcastle, does this ownership group really have the intention to go in and win everything, to buy all the players, to win everything, Champions League, everything? Is that it, or are they just wanting to go make a statement, or
they're shooting for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
they said it's not going to happen overnight, but over the span of the next several years, they're going to purchase coaches and players that are going to challenge for the Champions League.
Yep, I agree. I think it's a 5-year plan. And going back, Johnny, to your comment about ownership in the EPL, there are about 6 to 8 just in the EPL American owners who own squads.
Yeah. Right.
This is a billionaire playground. So, you could sit here and look back at just the American side and say, why are they not investing back into United States soccer? But
there's no money.
Exactly.
I think.
So getting back to the Newcastle, I think that the new ownership, they're going to come in, talking to a couple people who are fans over Newcastle. Of course, they're looking 2 inches in front of their nose and they want now. I've tried to explain to them, I don't see it happening right now. At least they will make some pushes. But, I do have a philosophy on what they're trying to do, I hope. Because I wouldn't want this to turn into like AC Monaco. Big money comes in, they get a bunch of big players, and then they start selling.
And that's happened in other sports as well, where you've had ownership come in and all they want is a World Series or some championship. And as soon as they win it, Florida Marlins is an example, they win something big and then the owner sells the entire team off and then they go from the top to the bottom. So, yeah, how long is the investment?
It's going to be very tough. I think it's going to be very tough to get in the culture and the quality of to compete with the biggest names in the world. I think it's going to be very, very tough. Timmy said about Monaco, they tried to do that with Falcao and all these players over there. But I think it's going to be much harder than you think especially in a working place like Newcastle. It's going to take time. It's going to take time, and if they don't succeed within these 5 years, what happens then? So I think it's more than that. I think it takes more than 300 whatever billion dollars it takes to get to that stage.
Well, and I think what they've done. Go ahead, sorry. I didn't mean to.
You can see PSG right now. I mean, it's going to take them. Well, I don't even think that on paper they have a good team, but I don't even think they're going to win the Champions League, to be honest with you. So that's just my point.
Since you mentioned PSG for a second there, Sally, let me ask this.
Yes.
There's a lot of money already in the EPL. Why do we not see Messi or Ronaldo?
Yeah.
Well, Ronaldo just did go back, but Ronaldo went away from EPL. He just came back. Like,
they have their contracts. They have so much money to earn. I don't think any Premier League team is going to pay whatever it is that PSG is paying for Neymar or for Messi. I mean, I can't see that to pay that, even though they can afford it. I can't see them paying that much money to get a 35, 36-year-old player. I mean, he's great at that stage. I mean,
But how long?
that's why they can't
Yeah.
buy. Yeah, they can. That's why they can't buy or get Mbappe over to England. He's too expensive. They don't have. They can't afford it.
You got to
And
remember,
he's
for instance, Newcastle, just because the ownership is worth 320 billion, doesn't mean they're going to put in 320 billion. So some
right.
of these
Yes.
fans need to kind of take a step back and say, okay, what is
Scroll
realistic
back.
investment?
So do
Just because,
Right.
and I mentioned this in a post, just because it doesn't mean you're automatically going to win. It means that there might
No.
go after a big name, one big name, and drop some stupid money just to make a point to settle down the fans a little bit. But there has to be at least a 5-year plan, and so they got to
That's
be
right.
smart about how they roll out their transfers. Here comes the January transfers, and you hear names getting thrown. But at the end of the day,
Yep.
in my mind, they have to put down the foundation first. And I know as a fan,
Right.
they don't care about the foundation. They want now, and
Yes.
that's the
Yeah.
change.
Well, I think what they've started with the right person, putting Mark Overmars overhead of as a director of football. He's been
But is that
brilliant.
a fact though? Is that a
That
fact?
was the
Is it
latest I
official?
read. He's accepted the job. They've been talking him up for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but it looks like he's now committed to going, and they're already talking about him being there. But when you look at, and he's my favorite player that I've watched play. And what he's done at Ajax is short of miraculous, because Ajax was just floundering for the last,
But
since that last
yeah,
generation with Seedorf and the twins. And
yeah, but you have to understand. You have to understand, Frankie, that Ajax and Overmars is from there,
yeah, he grew up
and
in that
coming to
system.
Newcastle. Yes, but you have to understand one thing, that it's a different ball
Yeah.
game to come to Newcastle and to produce, to be successful directly. Not today. Yesterday you should have produced.
Well,
So
from what I've read,
because it
he's been promised whatever he wants, he's going to get. So
Well,
he
hey,
he
John.
knows how to put a squad together. Yes,
well,
the
I
English
mean,
game is
you need
different than the Eredivisie. It is different, yes.
it is
Yeah.
way different, way different.
And since we're talking about this, if I could jump in, sorry.
Yeah, sure. No,
Absolutely.
I look at this, and this is just my take because I keep going back and forth on what I'm really thinking. But for Newcastle, I think it's more of a two-tier attack, meaning, for instance, if I gave you, let me just throw some numbers at you. Here's a manager out there that is 123 wins, 40 draws, and only 20 losses. Not bad for
that's
Wow.
managers.
really good. What's the club?
And this person grew up in the Liverpool system, played in the EPL, understands how to play football in that style. He also then just moved and signed a 4-year contract over in Scotland as the Rangers coach. Who was it? Steven Gerrard.
Huh.
Yes,
So
sir.
we also got to take a step back and say, young guy, starting off, he goes into
Yep.
Scotland for God's sake, and they won the title this year. His contract is
Yes.
coming up. He wants to
He's
come
cutting
back. I
his
think
teeth.
he's cutting his teeth. His record is saying, I went from youth, moved all the way up through the Liverpool, and played there, and is an international, understands the style, the play, the culture. And my
Thank
two-tier
you.
attack per se is hiring somebody who's not a big flashy name. Not now, because guess what? You're in 19th place currently,
Right.
and you're
Yeah.
almost potentially whoever they put in to put, in my mind, a band-aid on this year to save them. Because if you
Right.
hire a big name, and it doesn't work
and
out
you
this year,
don't
guess
make it,
what? You're you're down.
relegated.
So
Yeah,
if you're relegated down, what big name A manager, what big name players are
or
you going to
player.
recruit?
Yeah, you
So
can't.
yeah, so my thoughts were initially is this 2 tier, and the second tier is, you know, if you look at his coaching staff, 65% are English that he brought over to the Rangers. Um, Even Defoe's over there
Right.
managing, helping him.
Oh wow. Okay.
So if you
Yes.
look at, he has,
I heard.
and I'm just going to ramble off some names, but on the English side, his first team coach is Michael Beale. His technical coach, Tom Colshaw. Head performance, Jordan Milson. Goalkeeping is Colin Stewart, which is Scottish. Coach, Jermaine Defoe. Head of scouting, Andy Scholging. And then half of his scouts are from England. In my mind, here you walk into a guy who's end of contract, who's built up through the EPL, has tons of experience, cut his teeth in 4 years, really 3 years, with the Rangers, and won the title. And then he had to deal with on the field and off the field issues, and got them right back in, and they just win. And
And as a
everyone knows,
player,
oh, he's
he's a
outstanding.
legend. Yeah.
Plus, he wants to get back to EPL. His goal is to eventually go back to probably Liverpool. So he understands the culture of EPL through and through. He has a lot of English assistants that he could bring in. The second tier for me is, and you mentioned it earlier, is you could have a manager, but it's the foundation you're building. So if this is a person that you really want, you're bringing in his sporting director. So now you're building from the grassroots. Now you're going to the academy. Now you're
Academy.
building up
Yep.
from the bottom, and you're building your philosophy. Uh,
Now you're talking, Tim. That's exactly, that's why I think that, with all due respect to Mark Overmars and the Dutch style, I think that for the long run, it's this kind of coach or
yep.
manager they need. And Gerard is from a
Hmm.
working,
Blue
hard
collar,
working place.
and that's
Yes, blue
Newcastle.
collar worker,
Yeah.
and that's right, through and through. So again, I mean, I'm glad that they got this. They got bought. That's why I said it's both negative and positive to have that much money in the club. But in the long run, the money, the billions, is not going to make them be like
Yep.
Right.
the top
I'm
teams.
I'm
It's
glad
the
it was one of the
culture.
teams at the bottom and not a mid-table team like
Yep.
Everton or something like that, where they already had enough that they could just build a couple of pieces and already be at the top. This is a complete rebuild to get them where ownership wants them to be. And in 5 years, that's a stretch even in 5 years. But when you have unlimited money to throw at pulling in all the right people, and if all the right people are in place, it's going to happen faster than 5 years.
So are the
What?
other are 16 of the teams that have no shot at winning the EPL title most of the time? Are they making enough at winning the EPL title most of the time? Are they making enough money through TV contracts and through everything else that they're just a long?
Well, once they got that new television deal with the Premier League, all the teams got a huge multi-million-dollar boost in building teams. So everyone's teams are dramatically better than they were, say, 10 years ago. So the standard got raised, but well, you look at that outlier team, they had King Power, whatever that's a crazy money team that won out of nowhere. But when you see the team like Mahrez, he brought in for what, 200,000-300,000, something ridiculous. Where just it was an assembly of these no-name players in a very direct style of play that just scored a ton of goals, and no one could catch them, and they won out of nowhere.
And so is the goal? Well, I can't see the EPL going to any kind of American type system with salary
No.
type system with
No.
salary
No.
salary caps and things like that, because the other countries type system with salary like that happening is
Well,
the
it's
type system with
both.
salary
They want both, but you've got Paris Saint-Germain out there that seems to have unlimited spending, and that, I think, is the team that everyone is trying to stay ahead of, if not financially, but with skill.
But I think it takes away a little bit from the game. It, it started to be too much about, this club costs this much, and I understand why. It's because they want to be competitive,
Right.
that's why. But I think it takes it away a little bit. It's too much money, and it's a shame. Where all this gonna end, I really don't know. I hope that that somebody will come up with a solution to make it equal a little bit somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know
It's
how.
It's
But,
bad if prices get pushed down to ticket sales, and they try to help boot. This ownership doesn't look like it's going to need ticket sales increase to help fund anything. But what you see a lot of clubs doing is they raise the money that they're spending, but then they raise the ticket prices.
Yep.
And the fans that used to be able to get in and support their club, now it's too expensive for them to get in, and then your fans are angry. And that should be their number one priority, is keeping that fan base intact and basically assuring them that they're a priority, and that ticket pricing is going to stay in a range that they're going to be able to still be supportive of the club.
I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot of motivations on the ownership. You can look at, naming rights, stadium name rights, jersey rights, sponsorships, transfer fees. Can't remember back in '92, it was still the first division. It wasn't the EPL yet. That's when it rolled
Right.
out. So that's not
yes,
that old. But I think if you look at this, back in '92, now I'm going way back. Sky Sports paid 191 million for a 5-year deal for the EPL TV rights. Just in '07, it's worth now. They paid 1.7 billion for 5 years. So it went from 191 million to 1.7
Exponential.
billion. So
wow,
Barclays in '01 paid 48 million for the rights for the league. In '07, they renewed it for 65.8 million. Then you could transfer over to just jerseys if you want to. And if you think about it, everything now is on jerseys. Jerseys, headwear,
Yep.
kits,
Sponsorship,
you name it.
sleeve.
That's where the sponsors are getting everything. So just in let's just talk Man United, 45 million a year for Chevy when they were a sponsor for their jerseys. Barcelona, Qatar Foundation, 25 million a year. Bayern, 23.6 million to have their Turk Telecom. Liverpool, back when it was still standard, 20 million a year. So they're getting money on sponsorship, naming of
Multiple
stadiums.
fronts.
So these billionaires
Yes.
are making billions, and hopefully you're right that they don't trickle it down to the common fan, the supporter, and outprice the tickets. And hopefully they could put a caliber on the pitch that justifies it. Now, so going back to Newcastle, you're sitting in 19th. Your head is bobbing below water right now. You need a Band-Aid. All these
got
other
to
things
get
I
to
just mentioned,
mid-table.
everything I just talked about would naturally come. They will. Even Johnny's about maybe the bottom third. Will this hurt them? I don't think so. I don't think so. There's so much money now, and you can look at here in the States, the NFL. Look how much money is just floating around. TV deals left and right, billions and billions of dollars. It's sickening. But guess what? If fans continue to go and buy jerseys, support their teams,
that's where the money is.
That's where the money is. So
when a jersey costs almost $200,
get 7%, 7.5% for Messi or Ronaldo. Ronaldo go, and then he goes and breaks that record right away with his new Man United jersey stuff. But the jersey sales stuff, that is, depending on the club, it can be some money. But most of that money, depending on the club, it can be some money. But most of that money is going to the manufacturers, not to the club and not to the players.
Well, that last game that you and I went to, the Sounders game, just walking to the stadium, every single person that was in that that came to that game had a Sounders jersey on. I've never seen so many. Yeah, I've never seen so many Sounder jerseys in one place in my life.
Well, it's interesting too. I know last guy you guys are talking about your last podcast, top 5 players and the impact, and just when Pele came to New York Cosmos, the Cosmos were horrible, not that great. They couldn't
They were terrible.
They were giving away if I'm not mistaken, they were giving away like Burger King vouchers. They were pretty much begging anybody to come. But as soon as Pele showed up, it went to 22,000 fans. They had to shut down the stadium and lock the doors just by his influence. Then if you look at the marketing aspect, right? That's huge. Now let's go 30 years after that. And who's the number 1 player back then? Beckham. Now, Beckham's a good player. But I think he's more famous in a way, more off the field.
Marketing.
Yes. You see him when he came here to the MLS. It was more about his looks, his wife, everything off the pitch, and the impact.
Yeah.
So,
there was a funny story about Pele where when he came to the Cosmos, they were actually spray painting the field green because they couldn't even get the grass to be green. And he came off of the field from a training session, and he looked down at his feet, and his feet were green. And he thought he had gotten some kind of disease, and he was like, "I'm out. I'm not playing here." And they said, "No, we sprayed the field green. That's just paint. It's paint. It comes off."
So let me ask you guys this: salary cap, basically MLS and things like that, system, and let it be a free for all.
No,
well, they can't.
No, I think that I think that they will have to change the whole structure. But I think because MLS is a quite new league, I'm hoping in the future that they will figure it out, because I think that they should learn the mistakes that Europe is doing, different leagues are doing, because of the newness of the league. But definitely they should. The more the game is popular, I think that the wages will also go up. But I don't think it will ever be like Premier League. I really don't think so. It's a different attitude. They don't have that. I don't know what to say. History,
it's a culture.
that culture yet.
Yeah, and
the
ownership isn't willing to even consider the idea of dropping to a lower league. What? Drop to a lower league after all I just paid to get
or
into this
dropping
league and potentially drop out of it?
Right.
or dropping a lot of money on going and signing, dropping.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Right.
U.S.
I also
ownership is on a 5-year deal, a rotation where you can write a loss off for 5 years. So you typically see ownership of a U.S. team lasting about 5 years, and then new ownership comes in.
I think the MLS is your typical American. I want it now, and if I don't get it in a short period of time, I'm out. Versus
Yep.
going to Europe, and it's about the team, not the rewards necessarily.
And the other thing about the MLS is the MLS was actually put in place so that the national team would have a system in place to put national team players into a team for a country to win a World Cup. That was
No.
that
No. No.
that was
no.
the
no.
first
no.
mandate.
No.
How do you win it?
No.
Do you win a World Cup
No.
without
No.
a national league?
I know that, but they didn't put up the league because to get the national team players for the US.
That wasn't
That is
that
absolutely
had nothing to do
that's
with it.
false. No, it has nothing to do with it. The reason of that is that's actually a very false statement. They got the league in because they didn't have a big league for the soccer.
They had no league.
For
NASL was the last thing
no,
that
they didn't have.
failed.
Yeah. Don't interrupt me, please. Then you have they had the Major League Baseball, football, NFL,
Those are different
and
sports.
a lot of other leagues, which I don't know. But they didn't have anything for soccer, so that's why they got the MLS at that stage, not to get a better team for the national team player, and I don't actually, that is actually a disadvantage to them at that stage. It's I don't think they will get better players from MLS. They go abroad to play the good players.
But the
So
theory is
that's
to
the wrong.
home grow your own players. When we
Absolutely, but the thing
when we
is
went
that
to Italy, that was just a bunch of college kids that played in a World Cup for
know.
the first time.
and they did well, for being
Well, they
college
were a
kids.
shock.
So yeah, but what I'm saying is that they didn't start the league because for the reason that you said. They started the league to
Okay, so I'm gonna
get
I'm
soccer growing, to get the youngsters, because how many?
It wouldn't be
It's
the
the
only
most played
reason.
game in the.
That would be a byproduct.
I think it's one in not to. Yeah, but
I'm stepping in here. Okay, so I'm stepping in here. To the fans of the EPL clubs,
I think I think they're worried about they have to cheer on their own team, and say for example, if Chelsea plays in the Champions League final against PSG or Barcelona, whatever it is, I can guarantee you all the fans wants Chelsea to win because it's a PL team. So yeah, of course they for sure. Go ahead.
is different. I mean, because like there's always got to be somebody to hate. Like in baseball, everybody hates the Yankees. The Yankees have always spent a ton of money, and everybody hated the Yankees. So it's when it comes down to the Champions League final, though.
Yes, I think so. I think so. I think in the end of the day, they root, even if they hate them, to play against their team or some other English team or whatnot. But if they play against a different, from a different country, whether it's France or Spain or whatnot, I can guarantee you that 99% they will always cheer for that team. because they're soccer fans or football fans.
I think they're going to support whatever EPL team is in there because that's their league. Yeah,
Right,
you're going to have the good
right,
old boys sitting there not liking who's maybe not who's in there, and that's just the beauty of football. But when it comes to outside the EPL and they got an EPL team out there representing the league, they'll support it. They may not like it, and they'll take shots at them. But still, it's kind of you can
right.
pick on my brother a little bit, but I'm going to step in behind him and make sure that you don't pick on him a little too much because I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah,
That's exactly that's right.
betting or gambling to be a sponsor for a Premier League team.
At this point, why?
I didn't see the whys. Just there was. I think it's pressure from anti-gambling groups,
Mm-hmm.
much
Politics.
like cigarette sponsorship in the United States for teams until cancer awareness companies or groups came forward, and stopped all cigarette sponsorship.
Yeah. Well, hey, Johnny,
He was
getting back to
brilliant.
what you're asking me, I wouldn't mind taking kind of a right turn and kind of heading back towards the Newcastle discussion. Um, I'm, because as a fan, and I think everybody who is a fan of football is watching this new ownership and going back to what is their philosophy. Frank just said he's bringing in possibly a different, going on the Ajax style, possibly. I brought up, what I thought of a two-tier, bringing in a middle coach, maybe a younger successful coach who believes in that culture, who played in that culture, who lives in that culture. Uh, you know, I think they need to, in my own 2 cents, I think they bring in a coach like that. And I'm curious to see what kind of managers you guys think might be a good fit. If you're thinking a big name out of the gate, or are you thinking more of a middle or a up and riser to put the band-aid? Again, no, we're not talking about, they're in 19th place.
Well, I agree a little bit more with Tim
Oh,
that
you
they
don't agree
have to
with
have
Frankie?
somebody that's close and knows the
What?
culture.
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, I'm out.
So so
I lost my glasses
so
again.
for them, they're in they're in 19th place, and they just have
Yep.
to survive. I really don't think that anybody from outside. I mean, they can even get somebody that
Stomped.
is not a big time coach from their own
Mm-hmm.
organization, somebody that they believe in, somebody that they know, to get a little bit. It's about
Yep.
inspiring the players right now. They're in 19th place, and every time they go out, I don't even know how many games
A
there are
lot.
left now by now, but
It just started.
but it can actually get
Mm-hmm.
worse for them. It can actually get worse
It
for them.
probably
So
will.
they need somebody. And I believe, somebody like Steven Gerrard that's coming in, and he likes to get in there and work hard, and he knows the culture. He is from a working place, like we said before. I think somebody like that would actually put
Yeah.
energy in the place. I mean, they have to be reinvigorated. They have to get some
Yeah.
go in them. There's
Motivation.
going to be a lot of talk
Yeah.
about. Yeah, they're going to be a talk a lot about the new ownership, blah blah blah. They're going to bring in a big time coach. I mean, I don't give a flip if they bring in the best coach in the world. Can he turn this around? I don't know. In the end of the day, it's the players that play.
It better be
They're the
somebody the
one that's
players
playing.
respect.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
don't think that the solution is bringing in, or like Frankie says, Mark Overmars. I think it has to be somebody
Well, he wouldn't be coaching. He would
like you said,
he'd be director.
But does he have the talent for that style of
whatever.
football? And does the Ajax way, let's just
Thank you.
keep going down this rabbit hole, will that style work in the EPL? And if you have
Well,
that foundation, do you currently have the players that will buy into that style when you're
let's
in
look.
19th
That's right.
place?
Right. Well, let's look back to the Ajax team from a few years ago, where their average age was what, 22, and it was all young player, Frankie De Jong, all these players that just came out of that academy system, and they were just hammering everybody in the Champions League, playing very aggressive but very possession based
I,
style of play,
but
and it
Frank,
worked well.
yeah, but Frank, you have to understand that that's once it's you can say that about United when they had Scholes, Giggs, Beckham, that era. The same. They
Yeah,
killed everybody on the field too.
nobody knew who these
So
players were.
that's what
They do
that's what I'm
now.
saying. But it doesn't have anything. It doesn't have anything to do with uh, the the style that the Newcastle or the English style to a certain point is a little bit different than
Yeah,
the
but
Ajax
it's
style,
still
so to speak.
identifying young
So
talent, mixing it with experienced players, and putting a team out there that's going to produce now. What do they need right now? Right now,
they already have the players. They
Yeah.
already have the players. You got to play with those with the
Yep.
cards that you dealt
yeah.
with. You
And
already
that's your
have.
band-aid.
So
You can't.
So
Yeah, you can't get water out of stone. You have these players, so it has to be an experienced guy that's coming in to take charge and give them inspiration.
I'm stiff like
I
a
get like
safe.
really heated. I get very heated in discussing this,
No,
so
you
to
don't.
speak.
I don't believe it. I don't
And
So,
believe
so
it.
I agree. I mean, this is where
so
I think, and I just said Steven Gerrard because you know what? I think he's the right fit. There's
Yeah,
other
he would be
young managers.
brilliant.
There's some young managers in the EPL that if you really want to steal them, you can. But I think it's a two-tier attack of short term. You need to find maybe it's the caretaker right now. Maybe it's the assistant who's taken over now, and if he can motivate and he knows the team, he knows the players. You get a couple matches under his wing, he starts growing. They get excited, and it just snowballs. Whatever the philosophy is, if it's a caretaker or you're bringing somebody at a lower level, they have to stay up. At that point, once they stay up, now your second tier is you bring in. Now you start pouring in the money. You got January coming up. People are saying, I'm hearing numbers are ridiculous. They're going to buy $100 million worth of players, this, but they don't even have a manager yet. They don't have anybody. They don't have the foundation. So to me, it's more like short
There's
term
nothing they
fix.
can promise a future
No,
player.
secure until next year. You keep up. And at that point, you start sniffing around, but you have to pour money into your scouting system. Your director of sport, they are the ones in the background, the shadows, are creating the club, the style. And that's why whenever you bring your
that's
manager
right.
in, you try to bring that manager and also maybe the director of scouting because they know each other, they know their philosophies. So you got one
Right.
voice, one vision from grassroots, from club to academy, all the way up to the senior team. And then
That's
pour in
correct.
all your money. If you want to spend as much as you want after maybe 2 years, go for it.